Welcome to Skeptic Ep.3, where we ask the questions that you are afraid to ask. This channel is for those who are willing to question things and think critically. If you don't like what you hear, simple go watch something else. Today this topic will cover the common lie told in Jamaica that prayer works. In Jamaica, prayer is offered and portrayed as the ultimate and most powerful method of solving problems. The reality, however, is far disappointing, and people who claim to promote the idea that prayer works often relies on the personal experiences of others who share the same beliefs or their own personal experiences. The thing is, when we observe the wars, suffering, and blatant injustice happening in the world, it showcases how insensitive religion has conditioned us to behave and think towards our fellow humans in the world. An example of how this selfish form of thinking manifests itself is when we who are in countries who don't experience war and suffering, we tend to base our prayers on vain pursuits in comparison to the massive need of survival of people who are in countries experiencing wars, genocide, and constant suffering, who also keep praying, yet living with the reality of no answer. Prayer has also been used and weaponized in a more darker way, and it has been normalized in Jamaican culture, wherein when we have disagreements or disputes with each other, instead of learning how to properly communicate differences and come to a common understanding with each other, we are taught to pray against the enemy or ask the Lord to fight against those that fight against me. So this yet again highlights another vainglorious mindset that is given through the idea that prayer works. Most Christians in Jamaica would try to dispute my claims with the usual claims that people pray amiss, while not realizing they are doing it themselves. If I may repeat myself again, we who are in countries who don't experience war and suffering, we tend to base our prayers on vain pursuits in comparison to the massive need of survival of people who are in countries experiencing wars, genocide, and constant suffering, who also keep praying yet living with the reality of no answer. Let me highlight some vain pursuits we pray for on a daily basis: a bigger house, car, more money, a better job, etc., while the kid in the Middle East is praying in fear that he lives to see another day. The idea that prayer solves all gives pastors and the system a good excuse not to really solve the problems, but rely on divine intervention. This shows that prayer is just a distraction that shifts our focus from making practical decisions towards progressing the thinking of our society. Most Christians in Jamaica might counter this argument with the statement that God helps those who helps themselves. But let's analyze this statement in 5 points for a moment. This statement implies the following. 1. Shifts blame from God to individual. Implies failure is your fault, not God's inability to act. 2. Creates self-guilt and motivation. People work harder because they think God's help is conditional on their effort. 3. Decreases expectations of divine intervention. Individuals rely less on miracles, reducing disappointment with God's inaction. Increases self-reliance, which benefits the church indirectly. Productive congregants, more tithe money, and voluntary church labor. 5. Masking God's perceived inaction as a test of faith, implying God helps by withholding help, testing devotion. This statement is also a masterclass in reverse psychology, and also at the same time contradicts the idea of God being an all-powerful being, and exposes the harsh reality of the games these religions play to keep people in a state of constant denial of what is happening in reality. In Jamaica, you will have doctors who are active prayer warriors on Sunday, but in the week, they are at work writing prescriptions for their patients. It has to be studied. We need our Jamaican people to understand that this idea that prayer works, as Mutabaruka keeps on rightly saying, is an illusion. We need to get up and move and make sensible decisions to achieve changes and growth to our society. Think about it.